When you're looking outside the big brand names for a flagship phone, it can be difficult to try and decide what you want. You want something with the best features and capabilities, but you want to avoid the big names like Samsung and Apple. For 2023 so far, there are two very clear alternatives to the mainstream. That's the OnePlus 11 and the Xiaomi 13 Pro. Both offer great specs and performance, triple camera systems, big displays with smooth refresh rates and fast charging. However, the Xiaomi is quite a bit more expensive. So which should you consider of the two, and does that mean the extra money for the Xiaomi makes it a much better phone? I'm Cam Bunton from Pocket-lint, and in this video I'll hopefully help you to decide. If you do like it, please do leave a thumbs up, it means a great deal. Tap subscribe and the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any more of our uploads. Now, your first hint that the Xiaomi is worth more than the OnePlus comes in the design and build of the phones. Simply put, the bioceramic material used on the back of the phone is more expensive and time-consuming to work with. It is more durable though, and it looks genuinely stunning, giving off this dark, smoky but glossy appearance when you catch it in the right light. It does attract fingerprints like nobody's business though, and is very slippery. It also gives the phone more weight, and when you go from one to the other, the Xiaomi feels heavier and chunkier. There's not much in it, but in terms of pure measurement, there's enough that you can feel the difference. Both use Gorilla Glass Victus on the front, and yep, I've managed to scratch them both in a relatively short period of time. And in truth, both phones are quite big, and will force you to stretch to get those elements in the top corners and edges of the display if you don't have the one-handed mode enabled. From a purely aesthetic standpoint, the Xiaomi's combination of those seamless ceramic finishes ramping up to the edge of the camera housing and the simple minimalist lines separating the lenses give a classier look to the 13 Pro. I find it more visually appealing than the big round, almost glittery camera unit on the back of the OnePlus. From a more objective standpoint, however, the Xiaomi wins out on water and dust resistance. It's been certified to IP68 levels, and that means it can be submerged in water for up to 30 minutes and still be okay. OnePlus 11 only has IP64 rating, which means it's certified for spray or light rain. But it is worth noting that while it hasn't been officially rated for hire, it is built to cope with everyday accidents, so if you accidentally drop it in a basin full of water, it likely won't harm it. Moving on to displays, and it's safe to say that both companies were keen to equip their phones with the best panels available. Both are large 6.7-inch screens, or technically Xiaomi is 6.73 inches, so it is slightly bigger, but regardless, they're similar, offering 120Hz refresh rates that can adapt efficiently between 1Hz and 120Hz. They're also both Quad HD resolution, although you do have to enable that in the settings, but it does mean they're both really crisp and detailed. They're also both really bright, although Xiaomi does trump the OnePlus here, with its peak of 1900 nits of brightness being able to hit higher peaks than the 1300 nits on the OnePlus. Most of the time you won't notice this until you're outside in bright daylight, which has been a little limited here in the UK recently. Crank them up to full brightness, and you can definitely see the extra light coming from the Xiaomi, and in their default vivid settings, it also seems to balance colours a little bit better. Doesn't push the oranges and reds as hard as the OnePlus display, so my skin, for instance, doesn't look as rosy and pink. You do get the option to customise the colour temperature and profile to suit you on both phones. Now, I have to mention software, if only briefly, because it does make a difference to the usability of the devices, and in some ways impacts the experience quite negatively, at least when using the Xiaomi. MIUI is not my favourite, but it is tameable. It constantly tries to force you to use its wallpaper carousel feature on the lock screen. If you want to change your notification sounds or ringtones, or even select a new wallpaper, Xiaomi forces you into its theme store rather than just giving you a simple menu to choose from some pre-installed options. It's a real pain, as is the split control center and notification setup when you first use it. You can bring back the older style where you can drop down settings and notifications in the same view, but it's not the default. What's more, Xiaomi doesn't make use of the Android ability to match the system accents to your wallpaper. Just another thing that would be nice to have. OnePlus's approach is very different. It's lightweight, customizable, bloat-free, and just makes more sense. If I had to choose based purely on the software experience, it's an easy decision. I'd go with the OnePlus. Now, speaking about performance and speed, and there's not really much to separate these two phones, so I won't spend too much time on it. Just to say they're both using the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor, both have fast refresh rate displays, and so the feeling on both phones is smoothness and fluidity. They're responsive, they load games quickly, and generally don't struggle with any game or app, regardless of how demanding it is. Even with the in-display fingerprint sensor reliability, the two are pretty evenly matched, and both feature a premium haptic motor system that taps subtly when you're tapping on the keyboard or when you reach the top or bottom of a menu that you scroll through in the user interface. There's really not a lot of difference here. Where we perhaps surprisingly noticed more difference was in the battery life. Despite its smaller 4820 mAh battery versus the 5000 on the OnePlus, it was the Xiaomi 13 Pro that seemed to go longer between charges. There wasn't a huge difference, but there was enough that I noticed it day to day. It seems to drain slower in the standby mode and seems not to drain as quickly when you're using intensive tasks like camera or gaming. Both are comfortable enough to get through a full busy day, but with our own moderate usage of about 2 or 3 hours of music listening, social media and gaming, the OnePlus would often finish with somewhere around 30% left over, where the Xiaomi would be somewhere between 35 and 40. But in truth, neither phone really gave me any battery anxiety as long as I had my charger nearby, because they both charge really quickly. The 120 watts adapter in the Xiaomi 13 Pro box is genuinely life-changing, delivering a full charge in 19 minutes. OnePlus isn't far off that with a full charge in 25 with its own 100 watt charger. Now what it meant in reality was that I never charged it overnight. I'd just wait until it hit below 20% and then plug it in for 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes at most, and it'll be near enough up to full again. Where Xiaomi does have a bit of a difference is that it offers wireless charging, where the OnePlus doesn't. Now let's talk cameras for a bit, and I'll start this section by saying overall, in terms of what they offer, the features and performance, and when and how I'd most likely use the camera personally, it's the Xiaomi system that I prefer. But it's not cut and dry. Each has its strengths and weaknesses. Both of the phones have a triple camera system made of a primary, ultra-wide and zoom, and the first thing you'll notice is the zoom on the Xiaomi is much more capable. Its 3.2 times floating zoom lens and the high-res sensor combine to offer up to 70 times zoom. OnePlus goes up to 20. Of course, on both phones, once you get to those upper levels of their extremities, the pictures get quite blurry, looking more like a watercolor painting than a photo. And as for overall image qualities, regardless of which lenses we were using in any conditions, OnePlus's results had more of an artificial feel to them, caused primarily by over-sharpening in the processing that gives the pictures a contrasty edge, and the fact that it lifted vibrant colours out of the shadows. To some, this result might actually be preferable, but I think the combined over-sharpening and the slightly too vibrant colours in the shadows made the pictures look a little more hyper-realistic. Xiaomi, on the other hand, seems to do a better job of making details and textures look more real. The other thing I like is that it offers 2 different image styles or colour profiles to choose from, both created with Leica. There's an authentic mode and a vibrant mode, with the former being a bit more muted and natural and the latter offering slightly more contrast and saturation, although never gets to the point where it seems extreme. If you're wanting a phone that's good for close-up macro shots, the Xiaomi is the better phone here as well, if only because when it automatically switches to macro, it focuses quicker and easier, and is more reliable. The OnePlus would often switch between macro and not macro lenses, jumping between the 2 ultra-wide and main lenses, messing up the angle. And even with the right lens, I'd sometimes struggle to focus. It's not impossible to get it working, it just is slower and less consistent, so it takes more work than the Xiaomi. Now, shadows or dark areas are often quite a lot darker on the Xiaomi, and when you switch to night mode, this is seen a lot more obviously. In our testing at night with the phone set to night mode, it didn't seem to process images with the same level of light lifted from the darker parts of the image, sometimes to the point where it may as well have not had a night mode at all, at least on the ultra-wide and the zoom lenses. The main camera is actually really good in low light, and that's undoubtedly down to its size. It's a 1-inch type sensor and capable of delivering images in low light with a lot less noise and better detail than the OnePlus's main camera. However, it is hiding a bit of a trick up its sleeve: supermoon mode. Using that zoom lens, you can point it at the moon, zoom between 5 times and 60 times, and it'll automatically process the image and make the moon look sharp and detailed, not just a glowing blown out orb in the sky. In the end though, in most instances, I just like the results that came from the Xiaomi, and the fact that it makes it easier to get close-up macro shots and has the supermoon mode, and it also has these really neat portrait effects that change the colour, the focus and the depth. It's just a better all-rounder in my view. For videographers, they're both pretty similarly spec'd, able to shoot at 8K 24, and the Xiaomi can also shoot at 10-bit Dolby Vision up to 4K. It even has a teleprompter built in, so you can read it while you're recording to the front-facing camera if you want to. Now, as much as there are hardware elements where the Xiaomi outperforms the OnePlus, and even to an extent has a better and more durable design, there are 2 things to consider before taking the plunge on it over the OnePlus 11. Do you really want to drop an extra 300 or so pounds more to get it? And are you willing to live with that software? As it stands, OnePlus returned to its original ethos of delivering a flagship experience at a price point that's far more accessible than its rivals, including Xiaomi. You do have to put up with it missing a few luxuries like wireless charging and an official water-resistant rating, but it's a far easier price tag to swallow than Xiaomi's is. However, when it comes to almost every element, whether it be the battery performance, the display quality, the cameras and the build and the design, I did in truth prefer the Xiaomi to the OnePlus. I'm just not sure I'd be willing to spend the full retail price to get it. I've been Cam. Let me know what you think of these two phones in the comments down below. If you want to get me on Twitter, you can do. I'm at Cam Bunton. If you did like it, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe and tap the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any more. And I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.